place where human engineering challenged nature. A city without cars, where the streets have canals and the buildings seem to emerge directly from the water. It is a place that defies all logic, a labyrinth of bridges, alleys and gondolas that flutter over a glorious past and an uncertain future. Our liege stop is on the old continent, to Europe, more specifically in Venice, the floating city. The history of Venice is not about a king who decided to build a city on water. It is about the resilience and despair of a people who need shelter. Venice began around the year 450 AD, when the powerful Roman Empire was collapsing. Barbarian hordes from the north, like the Huns of Attila, invaded Italy. To escape the violence, the inhabitants of the mainland fled to a place that the invaders, who were not sailors, would never want to go, the swampy and uninhabited islands of Venice Lagoon. These islands were a labyrinth of mud and sand, seemingly useless. But the refugees saw in them the protection they needed. And with an ingenuity bordering on legend, they decided not only to hide, but to build an entire civilization there. Imagine the scene: there was no solid rock, only mud. The solution was one of the most impressive engineering feats in history. The Venetians began driving tens of millions of wooden piles, mostly from oak and alder trees, into the muddy bottom of the lagoon. These piles were driven so deeply that they reached a layer of hard clay, about 8 meters deep. They served as the stone foundation, but they were actually made of wood. Imagine an entire forest turned upside down, buried in mud to support a city. Can you imagine the sheer number of trees used for this? Over the piles, they placed layers of stone and mortar, creating a solid foundation. Incredibly, the salt water, devoid of oxygen, petrified the wood over the centuries, turning it into something as hard as rock, which allowed palaces and cathedrals to be built on what appeared to be nothing but water. The uncertain future, Venice's battle against water. The city that was built to escape the water now faces its greatest threat, the water itself. For centuries, Venice has suffered from acqua alta, or high water, which floods the lower parts of the city, such as the famous St. Mark's Square. Imagine the scene: one morning, you wake up for a stroll and discover that the streets have become canals. Have you ever imagined needing rubber boots to go for a coffee in the main square of one of the most beautiful cities in the world? That's the reality. The truth is that Venice is sinking. The city, built on wooden stilts in the mud, is slowly settling. It's a dangerous combination that threatens the future of this architectural jewel. But the Venetians, heirs of a people who have already conquered the impossible, have not given up. Their answer is Project Mose, a series of enormous barriers that can be erected to protect the lagoon from high tides. It's like a giant engineering shield, which they hope will ensure the survival of their city for several more generations. The history of Venice is a fascinating reminder that past and future are always connected, and that the struggle to survive is part of its soul. Venice is located in the state of Veneto, Italy. The origin of Venice's name is as old as its founding history. The name Venice comes from a very ancient people, the Veneti, a tribe that inhabited the northeastern region of Italy, where the city now stands, long before the arrival of the Romans. When the Roman Empire collapsed and invasions began, refugees who fled from the mainland to the islands in the Venetian lagoon were actually settling in the territory already known as the home of the Veneti. Over time, the name of the region, Venetia, eventually became the name of the city built on the water, a name that carries the heritage of a people who lived there for thousands of years. Their Veneto is one of the country's 20 regions, and the city of Venice is its capital. The native inhabitants of Venice are descendants of the Romans and Romanized peoples who lived in northeastern Italy. Their origin story is one of refuge and adaptation. So, the first Venetians were essentially Roman refugees who became pioneers in a new land. They didn't come from a single place, but from diverse towns and villages on the mainland. It was in this isolation in the lagoon that they forged a unique identity, distinct from the rest of Italy, which focused on the sea and trade. Today, Venetians who consider themselves natives are those whose families trace their history back to this tradition and this unique way of life, with a lineage that comes from those people who dared to build a city on the sea. Size: the historic city of Venice, the famous center built on the water, has an area of only about 7.6 square kilometers. The metropolitan area, which includes the islands and the mainland, is much larger, at approximately 416 square kilometers. The part you imagine, with canals and gondolas, is actually quite compact. Population. Venice's population is unevenly distributed. The historic city has a population of about 50,000, a number that has been declining over the years. Most people live on the mainland. So the Venice that tourists visit is a small, densely populated part of the real city, with most of its population living on the mainland. Have you ever imagined living in a place where you can't have a car and have to walk or take a boat to get anywhere? Venice is so famous because it was built in an impossible place. Its fame begins with its very existence. The city was built on wooden piles driven into the mud, a feat that makes it one of the largest and most audacious engineering feats in history. It's a city that defies logic, and that in itself is fascinating. It's a labyrinth of canals and alleys. The absence of cars and the presence of canals instead of streets give Venice a unique atmosphere. Taking a ride in a gondola or getting lost in its narrow alleys is an experience you won't find anywhere else. Have you ever imagined spending your life traveling by boat or on foot, without traffic? Its history is one of power and art. Venice was a powerful maritime republic for over 1,000 years, controlling trade and politics. This glorious past made it a center of art and architecture, filling the city with palaces, churches, and works of art by masters such as Titian and Tintoretto. It's the city fighting to survive. Its fame also comes from its most current challenge, the battle against floods and rising sea levels. The city's struggle to stay afloat, using modern technology to combat nature, makes its story even more dramatic and moving. Venice's titles. The Floating City. This is its most famous title, and the reason is obvious. Venice was built on millions of wooden piles driven into the mud, a feat of engineering that made it a city that defies logic and seems to float on water. UNESCO World Heritage Site. Venice and its lagoon are considered a UNESCO World Heritage Site for their unique beauty and history as one of the world's greatest centers of art, architecture, and cultural influence. It is a global treasure. The Queen of the Adriatic. This title refers to its powerful past. For centuries, Venice was the richest and most powerful city on the Adriatic Sea, controlling trade between Europe and the East. The Serene Republic. This was the formal title of the Republic of Venice, which governed itself for over 1,000 years. It reflects the city's calm and dignity, even amid its struggle for survival throughout history. Thank you so much for watching this exploration of one of the most incredible places on our planet. What did you think of this incredible place? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more fascinating journeys. Until next time.